Well, thank you very much, Carrie. I did leave off the bag boy, cashier, and a few other things, but I don't think they matter as much anymore. It's wonderful to be back at Unity of Santa Rosa. Paula and I always enjoy visiting either uh, personally and going over and spending some time or doing it via Zoom. Meeting with this wonderful congregation is always a delight for us. Before I launch into the lesson this morning, I want to kind of market something to you. What I'm going to do today is a mystical interpretation of the book of Revelation. And I, I do a class every week on Thursdays at 12:30 to 2. And we've got 3 members of your church that are involved in that class. And what I want to do is invite anyone that would like to learn to do their own interpretations to let Harker know, and Harker will get in touch with me and we'll get you signed up and you can join that class. It's an open class. Anyone can come in. We've got people from Alabama, California, and Nevada participating in that class right now. So if you're interested, give Harker your name. She'll get in touch with me and I'll get in touch with you and we'll make the arrangements. I'm looking forward to today's talk because most people in Unity don't like to talk about the book of Revelation. They kind of avoid it. You mention it and they say, well, I've never read it. Or if I read it, I didn't like it. But I want to present a different view of it today. It can be different, but it can also be very rewarding. I don't know many tales about the book of Revelation, but I do know one story about a priest and a rabbi that loved to go fishing together. So they went out into the country. They went down to a small river, parked their car up on the edge of the road, and they began fishing. Suddenly, a car shows up with a bunch of teenagers in it, and they stop and they look down and they recognize the rabbi and the priest. And the priest looks up at them and says, "The end is near. The end is near." And they look down and they go, "Well, you religious fanatic?" And they drive off in a cloud of smoke. They go around the bend, disappear, and suddenly you hear these screeching brakes and a splash. The rabbi looks at the priest and says, "Well, maybe you should have just said the bridge is out." Okay. When I was a young boy, I went to a movie, and this was before they had the restrictions on age. And the movie I went to see was called The Horrors of the Black Museum. There was a scene in that movie that was so frightening to me that for a month after that movie, I could not go to sleep at night until I worked through it because it scared me so badly. A couple of years ago, with all this modern technology, they redid the movie and I got a chance to watch it again, or at least part of it, including that scene that scared me so much, and it had no effect at all. In fact, I looked at it and I said, boy, that's hokey. What happened between originally seeing it and later on? What happened was I evolved and changed. I grew up. I could see through the illusion of the movie. And have you noticed everything in life seems to evolve? How would you like to go to a physician that hasn't had training since the 1940s? You want to get evolved training, evolved in every way. It's kind of interesting because it seems that a lot of times in spirituality, we haven't evolved. We don't look at the writings in a new way. We try to go back and look at them and just look at them the same old way we've always looked at them. Well, today I want to evolve a little bit and go further. Now, I'm not doing this on my own. Jesus himself recommended this. He said, "You've heard it said, but I say." And so what he did was take the Hebrew scripture and add to it. So he did it. In Matthew, Jesus says, "Every teacher of the law must bring from his storeroom new treasures as well as the old." So he realized you have to put something new in this. You have to evolve. Jesus in John chapter 10, verse 12 says, there is much more to say to you, more than you can bear. So he didn't say everything. He left some out. We're supposed to go further. We're supposed to continually study and learn. I like a quote by a medieval mystic. Her name is Matilde of Magdeburg. Matilda Magdeburg says, stupidity is sufficient unto itself. Wisdom can never learn enough. And so that's what I think. I think we're supposed to be learning and evolving and moving further and reading deeper. So I looked into the book of Revelation, and the first thing I did was look at what the so-called theologians, the scholars said. This is the book, one of the books I used, the Interpreter's Dictionary. I want to show you the pages. Look how small the print is. If you can't tell, this is information about the book of Revelation. It is 17 pages, double columned, 10 font. And guess what? The experts, the theologians, don't agree with each other on what the book is or even what it says. So if they can't agree on it, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be able to just read it and come up with my own interpretation. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to share with you a literal interpretation, a mystical interpretation, and then a little surprise that I got when I thought I knew it all and something different came to me. So let's get started. Here's the literal interpretation. It's very straightforward because you believe every word that the book says. Now, this is the Reader's Digest version because we don't want to go through the whole thing. The people on earth begin to, shall we say, be influenced and corrupted by something called the beasts, also called the Antichrist and some other things. Eventually, Jesus returns, coming in on a cloud. He brings with him or creates an army of light to fight an army of darkness. They go to a place called Armageddon, where there's a huge battle. But guess who wins? The light. We go to Jerusalem, to the temple, where we meet Jesus, meet God, and everything's fine. But the world is destroyed, and all those people on the side of darkness, including the beast, are thrown into an eternal fire in a pit. That's it. Something to look forward to, don't you think? Well, I had trouble with this story even as a child, but now I've got even more trouble with it. It's okay if you want to believe that. I'm not going to tell somebody don't believe it. There are people today that are supporting the reconstruction of Judaism and Israel for the sole purpose of allowing Israel to exist, because that's one of the predictions that has to be fulfilled in order for the apocalypse to happen. So I'm not going to go along with that. I'm concerned because this doesn't sound like the Jesus and the God of the Christian scripture. It sounds more like the God of anger, jealousy, frustration, rage, that anytime something doesn't go the way he wants it to, or it, what do? Sodom and Gomorrah, destroy it, start over again. The world, Noah and the ark, flood it and start over again. We get off base, kill us off and start over again. I think we've already heard that story. Not only that, it's dualistic. It's an us versus them, a good and a bad, a very simplistic way to think. Not the way Jesus thought or taught, I don't think. Jesus' love, from what I saw, was very inclusive. He could embrace both sides of an argument at the exact same time. But this particular story, puts it a good and a bad, a right and a wrong, and the wrong has to be destroyed. I don't think that's what we have in mind. Now, it also says that you'll be able to see the signs of it coming. But Jesus, I remember saying, God is spirit and must be worshiped in spirit. And you're not going to be able to see the kingdom with your eyes because it's not something you can see. He alluded to the fact, he says, you're not going to be able to point over here and say, well, there it is, or there it is. He said, just not going to be able to do that. Because as Elle brought out in her beautiful prayer this morning, the kingdom is where? The kingdom is within you. And so it's something you're going to have to look inward for. You're not going to be able to see these things outside you. Since 66 in the Common Era, I have found over 200 Christian groups that have formed for the last day because they thought the time had come. And we're probably going to have more, but it still hadn't happened because I think they're looking for the wrong thing. What I want to do now is give you a vision of the book of Revelation from a mystical standpoint. Jesus emphasized life, not death. He also emphasized thought. Jesus said, I have come to bring life and bring it more abundant. He then said, repent, for the kingdom is at hand. And the word he used was the Greek word metanoia, which means to rethink or open your mind. Paul then goes on to write, do not conform any longer to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So Jesus, Paul, these gospels are about opening our minds and our hearts to something. Now let's look at the book of Revelation symbolically with life and an open mind in mind. Revelation now becomes a book of symbols for the way in which we are to battle all our error thoughts and emotions, clear them out so that we can focus on God's divine plan. Again, let me repeat that. The entire book becomes a battle, not out here, but inside each of us for you and I to let go of every thought, belief, idea, or feeling that is based on our disciplined mind from the world and turn instead to God for a divine idea. And that's what it is. That's all the book is. Now, it's got a lot of hyperbole, a lot of battles, and a lot of stuff, but it's all about battles in our mind. It happens at a place called Armageddon. Now, that's the Greek word. If you read it, it doesn't say Armageddon in the Bible. The Bible will say it takes place at Megiddo, which is a plain and a hill outside of Jerusalem. And many battles used to take place there. That is a place where countries from all over the globe would come through Jerusalem, and battles would take place in Megiddo because it's an open plain where the armies could go fight. And so the author knew that, and so he puts it in the book. So everybody would know it's where all the armies of the world have come to battle. But we're not talking about their physical battle out there on the battlefield. We're talking metaphorically and symbolically and mystically about the battle inside ourselves. John of the Cross later names this the dark night of the soul. This is exactly the same battle John of the Cross talks about when he describes it as the dark night of the soul, because we're battling our own beliefs, our own emotions, and so forth that are so precious to us. We hold on to them, and John is saying, let them go. You can't go to God with those things in your heart and mind, because you'll contaminate the temple. But if we fight the battle and we are able to put down, at least for the moment, all those emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and so forth, we are then invited to go to the city. And we end up in Jerusalem, known as the place of eternal peace, the temple of God within us. And there, we're going to see something. Something happens there that can't happen on that battlefield. Now, that battlefield, we've just left two tremendous beasts. Most people don't realize the beasts have characteristics. The first beast is the beast of the sea that we've had to let go of. I thought this was interesting. This is from that World Book. Instead of honoring God, we have proud words and feelings for such things as tribes of the earth. Now, what's a tribe of the earth? Well, nationalism is a tribe. Our religion, a tribe. Democrat, Republican, they're all tribes. They're not of God, they're of our human making. And yet we give them more energy and thought than we do of God. And we're supposed to let that go. We have to let it go. Albert Schweitzer says, nationalism is an infantile sickness. It's the measles of the human race. Got away with words, didn't he? We're supposed to give all that up. We can't take that with us. We can't take the second beast, the beast of the earth. I read up on it, and it says, these are promises and signs to honor the beast itself, the beast being an earthly leader. Do we ever, I don't want to get into politics, but the idea of only I can solve it. No, my friend, only God can solve it. We can't give any other human being our authority. They can't solve it. Only God can solve it. And when we realize that and we put it all down, we can then go to the temple. And when we reach the temple, there is a beautiful statement in Revelation. I'm going to read it word for word because I think it is the most beautiful, beautiful writing. The Spirit and the bride, that's God and us, say, come. It's an emphasized come. And how many times in the Bible do we hear Moses, come? Jesus to the apostles, come, follow me. The idea being the bride, us, we call upon God with the same energy that God is calling upon us. Isn't that beautiful? And it goes on, and let him who hears say, come, and all those who wish drink freely from the river of life. That's where it really ends. Now, there's another paragraph, but it's what I call the copyright statement. Don't be changing words. This is my writing. The real ending is right there, where we call upon God with all our heart, all our mind, and all our strength. And God answers. And we are drinking again from the river of life. And that's where it ended for me for the longest time. And I thought, well, that is so beautiful. That's how it ends. But then I read C.S. Lewis's 7 books on the adventures in Narnia. How many of you have read all 7?
No.
Okay, good, good. Well, most people read the first one. What is it? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And that's as far as they go. They don't realize that C.S. Lewis was a devout Christian. He was also what I call he had what I call universal morality. He went beyond just Christian. He really opened up beautifully. He writes in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, in all the books, mystical messages of Christianity and world religion. Aslan the Lion is the Christ, is a higher consciousness. There's higher magic still. I mean, he loads the books with it. In the last book, The Last Battle, he gave me a new idea that I'd never thought of before. In The Last Battle, and as you know, the children come from London. They go through magic portals. They enter the land of Narnia. And there in Narnia, they battle all sorts of things, kind of like they battle Armageddon. And then they return back to London to live their life. In the last battle, even Narnia is going to be destroyed. The children end up in the forest, and finally they go into a stable. And in the stable, there's a bunch of dwarfs sitting in a circle. Now, here's where it gets interesting. They turn around and look, and all of a sudden behind them is a beautiful vista. Mountains, fields, hills, a world larger than the world they left. It's larger on the inside of the stable than it is on the outside. And there's the lion Aslan. And he says, I've been waiting for you. He says, now we're going on another adventure. And they look and they say, well, what about these dwarfs? Can't they come too? He says, no, they're not ready. He says, what do you mean? They can't see this? He says, no, you see, they think they're in a small stable. He says, can't we tell them? He says, you can tell them, but they're not going to believe it. They believe they're in the stable. Come with me. And they walk off. And I'm going to read what C.S. Lewis wrote. As he spoke, he no longer looked like a lion, but the things that had begun to happen were so great and beautiful, I can't write them down. And for this, there is no end to the stories. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now, at last, they were beginning chapter 1 in the great story, which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is greater than the one before. A rabbi once, I should have remembered this, said, the idea that the Jewish writing, the end of an age, isn't the end of everything. It's the beginning of something else. It's the completion of what we needed to complete at one level, and now we're going to go to another one. We're going to climb Jacob's ladder. You just finished one rung. We're going to go up. The book of Revelation is the end of one chapter, the beginning of another. And it's an even greater chapter because what we're taking with us from that temple and from that experience is just what Elle described in her prayer, that inner spirit, the insight. And now we're invited to step up and go higher. Now, that isn't what everybody believes, but guess what? It's just a belief. I choose to believe the metaphysical message because I like the idea of God giving me and everyone a chance to drink from that river and then go back into life and go higher. What do you think? Which one do you like? And I invite you, read it and think for yourself. See what you come up with. And that's your lesson for today. Thank you. I'm going to try something different with the meditation this morning. It's going to be about a 5-minute meditation, and it's going to be based on the book of Revelation. And it's going to be a practical opportunity to, shall we say, face your Armageddon. What I'm going to do is lead you into focusing in a quiet meditation only on your breath. And I'm going to have you just stay focused on your breath. Don't allow anything to interfere and get into your mind. Now, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have weighing thoughts every once in a while. And I'm going to add to that. I'm going to be the beast. And I'm going to throw every 30 to 45 seconds into this meditation a thought. And I'm going to try to throw you off. But I want you to go back. Don't think about it. And continue to focus only on your breath. This is practicing that control that we need in order to go deep. Okay? All right. And then I'll bring you back. So let's just begin as we normally do. If you can, close your eyes and to begin to relax. This is the first step. It's just simply trying to relax our thoughts and our mind. It's a more difficult task than most people realize. Being able to listen to that still small voice and being able to hear it as a whisper is not easy because there are competing voices. The beast of the land and the beast of the sea are all in our heads. And in preparation for that, let's do just this. All I want you to do for the next 4 minutes or so is focus on your breathing. Don't allow any other thought to capture your attention and draw you off. If a thought comes in besides your breath, let it go. Practice focusing. Only your breathing. From this moment on, only your breath. In and out. The sound of a gentle breeze. A baby crying. An argument. Are you pro-choice or pro-life? Joe Biden, Donald Trump. We face this battle every single day, many, many times a day, where outside events appear to have power over us, when in fact they don't. There's a power within us greater than any power on the outside, and that's the power of the Spirit of truth. Jesus said, Kingdom of God is within you. We don't need to look outside for it. What we have to do is face the battle with all these outside influences and put them down long enough to quietly enter Jerusalem, call upon God with our whole heart, our whole mind, and our whole strength, and allow ourselves to drink from the water of life, divine inspiration, and then come back into the world with God's divine plan in mind. We'll be a new man and a new woman at that point, and it'll be a new Jerusalem, a resurrection, and we'll see the world entirely differently through God's eyes. Now, very gently, very lovingly, begin to bring your attention away from your breathing and back into this space. Open your eyes slowly and be present. And let's affirm together that there is this beautiful temple of truth within each and every one of us, and that we are the children of God, and that we always have within us the ability to enjoy and experience the life that the Creator meant for us in the first place. All we have to do is go to that temple, and we are guaranteed a life that we could never imagine, that goes on and on. And so be it.